Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about 4 levels of ZF transmission service. All right, you can mix and match. You can do some of the steps from one level into another level. You can see I have a bunch of stuff laid out here. I want to make this short and sweet because I want to make this something that you can show your customers as well when you're trying to explain what goes on with these transmissions. All right, I will have a longer version. This is the shorter version. As you can see, I got a lot going on. I got an N62 engine rebuild going on. Got this valve body. I got another transmission under there. I got another transmission over there. Got a lot to do. But I want to take a minute to explain this, okay? Most people, they do this. They get the pan. They might try to buy a cheap one. Don't do that. Buy a Filtran, okay? The factory one. Do not use anything other than that. You will be sorry, okay? Just this O-ring quality alone and this gasket quality is different. So just don't do it. Filtran all the way. It's cheap enough. And if you're driving a car with one of these transmissions in it, those are not cheap cars. Okay? So if you can't afford to do a proper transmission service on it, you may consider going with a cheaper car. Okay? Get a Honda, a Hyundai, something like that. And it's not to be rude and insulting, but I just can't stand when people say, oh, these cars cost so much to maintain. There's a reason they cost that much. It's the drive quality that they provide you. These cars always have problems. It's not that. It's that you're not maintaining the car properly, okay? And I'm going to tell you that so your mechanic doesn't have to tell you that, all right? BMW says this is a lifetime fluid. Common sense will tell you no fluid is lifetime. I'll now prove it to you right now. You look right here on the back where it says shake before use. There's a reason it says that. You shake this before use because the additive package that's in here tends to settle to the bottom. The additive package is what wears out of the fluids, the engine oils and transmission fluids as well. Okay, use the proper transmission fluid. It's pricey, but use the right fluid. Now, if your mechanic is telling you this thing takes 6 or 7 quarts, but I want to buy 13 or 14 quarts of fluid, okay? He's not trying to rip you off for fluid to change his own transmission fluid. Well, he might be. I can't say that for sure, but I wouldn't do that to you. What I'm trying to do is drain and fill your fluid twice in order to retrieve more of that old fluid out of what's inside the transmission. When you drop the transmission pan, if you drain it right for a long period of time, you can get up to, on a 6 HP transmission, maybe 6.5, 7 quarts of fluid out of it, okay? You want to buy at least 10 or 11 quarts of fluid, if not more. So that way, when you drain it initially, you change the filter, you refill the fluid using the proper procedure, which involves checking the temperature of the fluid and filling it until it drains out of this plug. Run the engine, shifting the gears to allow the fluid to go all through the transmission and the fluid level in the pan to decrease. Then you refill it till it's spilling out of the hole. You check the temperature, and when you get a small stream of fluid trickling out, that's when your fluid level is set. Okay? And you're not trying to level the transmission, just set the car level, maybe the back a little slight bit higher than the front, that's fine. And you don't have to go crazy with trying to level the transmission because the back of the car will be so high if you do that. Anyway, continuing on, all right? Let's change the fluid basically twice in order to get more of the fluid out of the transmission. Here's why. Look at how deep all these channels are in the valve body. This is the brain of your transmission. Here's all the valves that are being controlled by the hydraulic pressure that's flowing through this transmission. See, look at this one trying to roll away. All right. The thing is, when the fluid gets old and dirty, it creates friction on these valves, and they cannot move against that spring pressure properly. And this bore is aluminum. So once there's wear in that bore, now these valves will no longer be able to move with fluid pressure against those springs. The pressure just bypasses the valves. Okay. There is an upgrade kit that can be installed that can address some of those concerns. It's by a company called Sunex. It's called a zip kit, okay? So here's some of that installation going on. You use end plugs that have O-rings. You upgrade a couple things here by doing that, okay? You replace the regulator cap right there. You replace any of these end plugs right here that you see. They don't have O-rings. The new ones will have O-rings and prevent leakage out of the bores, keeping the pressure in the valve body, okay? Now, here's the upper half of the valve body. Again, deep channels. So there's a lot of fluid left inside of the transmission besides what you drain at the bottom when you do this service. Also, forgive the mess, but there's a torque converter, and that thing's pretty big. That's almost full of fluid as well when it's inside of the transmission. So there's a lot of fluid left up inside of the transmission besides what you drain there. That's why I drain and fill twice. Get more of that old fluid out, especially if you're over 80,000 miles, which is what ZF, the people who make this transmission, not BMW, ZF recommends 80,000 miles for transmission service. Okay, now here's what happens. The fluid becomes contaminated. Yes, there's a filter, but the filter is not an absolute. It's not an end-all be-all solution. Some small particles, especially as that same fluid is constantly running through the transmission, some of those small particles stay in the fluid, go up into the transmission. They cause wear on the bores as well as the valves. They also cause wear on the solenoids, okay? As that fluid is passing through the solenoids, the seats tend to get worn. And now they cannot open and close the way they're supposed to and control that fluid precisely through the valve body. So you get a deteriorating shift quality, all right? That's what happens. So level 1 service, being drained and filled twice, and complete pan filter assembly. You cannot replace the filter separately. You want to go with the Filtran. You want to go with the ZF fluid, okay? Now, a level 2 service, which I try to shy away from, and I'll explain why. Level 2 service involves taking the valve body down out of the car, okay, and replacing some seals. Not separating it like this. I split it in half. I took everything out. Here's all your little check valves, your dampers, okay, springs, valves, all that stuff. I took it all out, okay? I took it all out. And the reason being, I wanted to do a complete service on this valve body, which is my level 3 service. On the level 2 service, you will find a lot of videos on YouTube of people doing this. They replace these seals. These go above the valve body and make contact with the valve body as well as the transmission. So this side touches the valve body, this side touches the transmission. They replace this to prevent external leakage. This is an electronics connector, which, by the way, for the mechanics watching this video, you must line up that tang with the spot for it on the mechatronics unit, and you must apply a slight pressure inward when you're going to push that tab up. Okay, a lot of people mess that up and they break those, and guess what? Then you have to buy a complete unit. All right, and they're not cheap. They're about $2,500 from BMW. So, level 3 service is going to be more in depth than just changing this stuff. Okay. So level 1, pan filter fluid twice. Level 2, changing these seals above the valve body. Let me finish showing you where this stuff makes contact. So the 4 round seals touch right there, and the square bridge seal, which likes to crack, goes right there. So, and then I'll show you how it goes on the transmission too. Let's take this over there and I'll show you guys right now. If your car is jumping back into park from drive, a lot of times that bridge seal that goes right there will be what's cracked. So this is the way it's going to go into the transmission. You see the bridge seal there? That's where it goes, the bridge seal, and then the filter goes in right there. Okay, and then the 4 small tube seals, they go in right here. You can see that to the right of the screen, the 2 holes are shallower, and then deeper holes to the left of your screen. Okay, and that will explain the length of those seals being different. So what happens is leakage starts to occur between the top of this valve body, which is the brain of your transmission, and the transmission, what's actually doing the work of shifting the gears. So when you have leakage, you don't have proper shifting. Now, if I'm going to take this valve body down out of your transmission and you have over 100,000 miles on it, I'm going to recommend doing the full service, okay, which is level 3. Okay? If you want to do level 2, if that's all you can afford at the moment, that's fine. Things are expensive nowadays, I understand. If doing the pan and the filter alone doesn't do it, you want to try something more, we could pull the valve body down. There's not a lot of labor involved. You take this down, you replace these seals, you put it back together. It's not going to take that long to do. It does require someone skilled, so don't take it to Joe Blow down the block who says, give me a 6-pack and a pack of Marlboros and I'll get it done for you. You know, he might be able to, but, you know, something about that type of guy working on this type of transmission just kind of bugs me, all right? And it should bug you too, because is he going to own it if he puts something back together wrong? If he over tightens the valve body and cracks it? It's the torque specs are very low for these things. You don't get under there with an impact gun like a moron and you know, zapping this stuff down. Also, if you miss these 3 screws on the module that attach the module to the case at the back, you break the module. There's things that you need to know about servicing these transmissions that a lot of people don't have the detail for. And a lot of people can be a mechanic and be a good mechanic too. But when it comes to in-depth detail on things like this, you got to have somebody that's good, that knows what they're doing. All right? I'm not here trying to pat myself on the back, because believe me, I take way too long. I lose money on these jobs sometimes because the way I like to clean this stuff and put it back together, I want the best possible chance of making an improvement for the customer. All right? So you can do that stuff, level 1. You can do level 2, which includes level 1 and doing this. Then you can move it to level 3, which is replacing the solenoids, okay, which a lot of times have issues with the seats being plastic inside of them. They don't control fluid properly after they've had an abrasive type of fluid running through them for a while. And you're going, what the fuck do you mean? Excuse my French, but what do you mean about this abrasive fluid passing through? What is abrasive fluid? Well, the filter's not going to catch everything, is it? So as the bushings inside the transmission wear, which is where a lot of your main troubles are going to be coming from when you have really old fluid and you beat the crap out of your car, these bushings wear out. That stuff, you know, this material will end up inside the fluid, okay? When you start to slip, you start wearing out these clutches, and they wear out quick when they start slipping. So if you're having slipping issues and codes, don't continue to drive your car like that. Just because it can roll doesn't mean that it should, okay? When you're real sick laying in bed and you can't go to work and your boss tells you can't have the day off, just because you can get up and walk doesn't mean you should go there, right? It's the same thing with the transmissions. That abrasive fluid passing through the transmission, ending up in the solenoids, ending up in the valves, creates excess friction. It creates excess wear, and now the controlling portion can't do what it's supposed to do. The brain of the transmission is inside here, the module in here. It communicates through this wiring. Don't ever touch those pins, by the way. I'm not touching them. I'm way above them. All right? Static electricity can burn that module, so just don't touch them. And be careful where you put it down. Don't let anyone get near it. The engine communicates with this to help with the shifting, but the main brain of the transmission is in there, monitoring the temperature, monitoring the speed of the input versus the output with those 2 sensors right there. And so just those 2 sensors and the oil temperature sensor, which is right in there, that little guy, it knows what's going on with this transmission and if it needs to throw a code or not, because it commanded 2nd gear, it commanded 3rd gear. Does it see the difference then? Does it see that the input has slowed and the output has sped up for an increase in ratio, or vice versa for a downshift? Does it see it within the specified amount of time as well? So friction in the valves and leaking solenoids can then cause codes because those shifts don't happen in the proper amount of time. So you lose your smoothness and you lose your the whole beauty of the design of these transmissions, really. All right, the buttery smooth shifts that you barely feel. I mean, they're amazing transmissions when they work right. So I like to say, if we're gonna pull the valve body down to do all that, might as well go with the level 3. Let's split the valve body. Let's replace the spacer plate. This goes in between the valve body halves. So it will sit on top of here and be sandwiched in between this half right here, okay? The spacer plate itself does deteriorate, as you can see, and there's a new one right there, okay? So when that deteriorates, that ends up in the fluid. I have seen that on the screens of the solenoids as well, right here, okay? So the thing is, you might as well split the valve body if you can afford to do it, replace the solenoids, replace the spacer plate, install the zip kit, all right? The zip kit comes with some stuff. If you drive sporty, I would say install the dampers with the spring. These are an upgrade over the stock ones. Here's what happens to the stock dampers. They go inside of these holes right here. This is what contributes to a smooth shifting action. And pulling off from a light, getting a smooth, when you first touch the throttle, if you feel a little jolt when you first touch the throttle, okay, these dampers are probably flat. you see the ones that are further back here versus the ones in the front. These are old and used and trash, and these are good. All right. So if you're just driving normally, just cruising, and you want the smoothest possible shifting, I would say probably go with the factory rubber ones, which I have suppliers that can get all this stuff for you guys. Or you can go with the springs. For more sportier driving, these are gonna last longer, okay? Because you're gonna be pushing on these a lot quicker and harder on a sporty type of drive. If you use manual shift and things like that, I would recommend doing these over those, okay? But if you're just cruising, those are fine. So this is the stuff that's gonna be done that's gonna help you upgrade, okay? The spacer plate, new solenoids. Part of the zip kit are these O-ringed end plugs. Here's, by comparison, here is an end plug that does not have O-rings on it, okay? It's just an end plug. These have O-rings. They say that addresses specific leakage points on the transmission, okay? And will assist with keeping the pressure higher in the valve body, so that way the transmission can make more effective use of that pressure. So here's a couple more upgrade parts that come with the kit. Pressure regulator cap. Anyone that's good is going to be really organized and really clean everything before it goes back together. All right, and that's the idea with the level 3. Now level 4, let's do the sad part. That's the rebuild. That's when you have to take the transmission out of the car. 95% of the problems start in the valve body. They start with this stuff that I'm showing you. So if you're having issues and you do level 3, okay, you get a lot of the fluid out of the transmission. You get everything nice and clean. You get your new solenoids. You get your upgraded end plugs and such. You're gonna prolong having to do this part of it much longer. So a level 3 is really the way to go. But if you can only afford a level 1, that's better than nothing, okay? Because you're gonna get a lot of that fluid out. You're gonna get fresh fluid in there. All right, now I'm not saying that new fluid is the bee's knees, because there's stuff floating around in new fluid too, but most of that will be able to be caught by the filter. That fluid that's been in there for a long time, that fluid has crap in it that's too small to be caught by the filter, and that's what starts to wear things out too, okay? So level 1, that. Level 2, we're talking about this stuff, just pulling the valve body down. More fluid's gonna come out of it. If the mechanic's good and he drains the valve body good, you're gonna change this stuff out. Then level 3, we're talking about changing the solenoids, adding the zip kit, replacing the spacer plate, okay? But you could also blend it, you know? If your mechanic's willing to work with you, you could also take the valve body down. So you're gonna do level 2, replace these seals, right? You could pull the computer unit off, which takes removing 6 screws, 2 there, 2 here, and 2 over here. All right, and very careful removal. Don't forget those when you're taking the valve body out. You can take that off and replace just the solenoids. You can do that too. You don't have to take the valve body apart and go through all this cleaning process and replacing those dampers and replacing that spacer plate. You don't have to do that. You can pull the valve body down, do this and do that, and it's going to make a big difference. It is. But if those dampers are still flat, there's only so much that the computer and the solenoids and, you know, and its newfound pressure transfer because you no longer have leaking seals. There's only so much that stuff's going to be able to do without replacing these guys. And if you're going to want to do it right, you're going to want to replace these. If you split these valve body halves, you're going to want to replace that spacer plate. All right? And it does cost some money to do this, but it's going to save you from having to remove the transmission from the vehicle and do a complete rebuild, okay? Besides the solenoids, the other major issue that these transmissions experience is wear on these bushings. Why do these bushings get worn? Worn fluid, lack of service. BMW telling people that it's a lifetime fluid. It is not lifetime fluid, people. These are brass bushings, okay? They wear out, and then guess what? The fluid can leak between the shaft and the bushing. You lose the pressure, you get codes. You get slipping, and you burn these clutch plates that you see here. Okay, so that concludes my video for today. I just wanted to share with you guys those 4 possible levels, as I call them. That's kind of how I break them down. I'm sure some people will have some opinions on this, but I've done many of these, and I've had very great results. So the other thing I'd like to say is if you guys have a valve body that you would like to send over and have us take care of it, we can do that. We can take care of your valve body. We can take care of your engine. Whatever you need done, we can have it done, okay? And ship it right back out to you. So if you don't want to do the internal stuff, it's fine. Ship it out here and we'll handle it. All right, just shoot an email in the comments. Anybody have any questions, any mechanics, any customers, you have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comments and I will reach out to you. Anyway, be safe, don't drink and drive, wear a mask. Take care, thanks for watching.